Yeah, g'day to our TryPod family and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. Here with Jacob Wynn, of course, from the TryPod, and Dane from Clarkey's Rugby League column. The 100% correct tips this week, Winnie, come my way. It's the first ever 100% I've got. There was only 2 games. You better bet I am going to jump on here and claim it, mate. But how are you going?
Up the wires, mate. I'm pretty good. I didn't know if you were talking about my best bets. We got a winner today. We scraped in. I think you'll find that's about 3 or 4 straight winning best bets where my overall theme didn't win. Hence, a la this game that just completed, Warriors Knights, didn't go under, but the first half scraped under. The Sharks didn't win, but they did cover the first half line. The Knights didn't cover the game last week, but they did cover the second half line. The Storm didn't cover the game, but we're $1.20 favorite to win my Storm best bet too because they progressed. So, of course, there's one best bet pending, which will be the Storm facing Penrith, and we need the Storm to lose. But that's a great position to be in. So, on that front, I'm pretty happy. We did lose the mixed matchup, though, and same game it didn't get up. So, it was a okay weekend, but I have to just say, and I'm sure we've got plenty of excited people in the chat, just got to say massive congratulations to the Warriors. You know they've had a phenomenal season, but I felt like it would be a bit of a disappointment if they couldn't cap it with a finals win. Now, no matter what happens, they've had an emphatic win in front of a packed out Mount Smart. You love to see it.
Yeah, Warriors fans have been so loyal over the years in a country that's largely dominated by rugby union. And I completely agree. Regardless if they go to Suncorp and lose next week, they've now given themselves a platform and a base to build off into future seasons. And that's really exciting. They have exceeded all expectations this year. Second last in 2022, I believe, all the way into the top 4 and now all the way into a preliminary final, 1 game from the GF. Let's jump into our specific review. We'll start with the Storm and Roosters game. The Melbourne Storm get up in this one, 18-13. And for this one, mate, I just thought, although I'd love to give the praise straight to the Storm, I've got to say, what unbelievable fight shown by the Roosters yet again. When Walker kicked that field goal, I thought it was over. Now, that was minute 71. The Storm looked out on their feet. But if there is one player in this competition where nothing's going on your way and you want them to create something, genuinely, if you ask me to pick one player, I'm going to pick Cameron Munster. He's done it in grand finals. He's done it in Origin games. And when he kicked that crossfield kick, at first I thought, oh my God, what a horrible decision. That was their last chance to set up for a field goal. And then you saw Warbrick go up. And once I saw he had that ball, I was on Channel 9. And the camera angle they had, I saw him come up with the ball, but I didn't know if he'd scored yet. I saw him reach out. Camera angle didn't give it away on Channel 9. Then he got up celebrating. And my first thought was, oh my God, Munster has just done that. Genuinely for Munster and Warbrick, I think that's up there with one of the most clutch plays I've ever seen in finals. Of course, Jonathan Thurston's field goal will always be considered one of the most clutch plays, but that one's got to be up there. Watching the Storm, no Jerome Hughes. I think your bet for them to be eliminated next week by the Penrith Panthers at a core stadium, that's as good as money. I would feel comfortable walking into my mortgage broker and offering that as part of my net worth if I was sitting on that ticket, if I'm absolutely honest. How did you see it, mate? I'm sure you were very nervous when Sam Walker kicked that field goal.
Yes, I felt the same way. I felt like the Roosters could pull it out. I think a week ago I sat here and said, is it already, Broncos, Panthers, foregone conclusion, grand final? We've still got 2 prelims to get to. And I know everyone feels that way, but you just never know. And I know it hasn't happened yet in the finals, but you get a sin bin, you get an injury, and injuries have been key as well. We've had some near upsets, the Knights, that was close last week, and thought we were going to get one last night. As you said, Jerome Hughes being scratched. The funny thing about that is, if I'd known Hughes was not going to play, because it caught us a little bit by surprise, I probably don't make that best bet because it wouldn't have been the same value. It was great value when the Storm looked like a really strong likelihood of winning Friday night. And then when Hughes was out, their head-to-head price was up $1.40 plus. So then that $1.80 was not a great price. It was an okay price. And I guess that meant more people could get on it, but it wasn't as good of a bet. Nevertheless, as you say, it comes down to a try with basically a minute to go. How crazy is that in such a low-scoring game? After it originally looked like Melbourne could run away with the game. They got the jump on the Roosters. They led 10-0. We just saw the Knights, not to jump around too much, but we saw the Knights fell away in the end and had 40 put on them. That's kind of what I thought could happen to the Roosters. That's what I played my mixed matchup into. Maybe the points starting to flow for the Storm, especially once Harry Grant came on. To the Roosters' credit, and you haven't mentioned refereeing, but I thought that's a key talking point. I thought every call was against the Roosters early, giving the Storm every chance. I'm not talking about like specific memorable ones, but just felt like subjective, like penalties late in the count to the Storm, like just 6 agains. And obviously there's the blatant one where Klein somehow misses a Harry Grant knock on. The Storm actually score on the back of that set. So I felt like, what does the NRL particularly want Melbourne? And I saw people in the comments going, oh, because they want to compete with the AFL, they want Melbourne to get through. I don't know. We'll get to like conspiracies later. But the Roosters actually did really well to be only within 4 points at the break. Brandon Smith scores against his former team. Not that I didn't think Smith had a great game. I thought Smith, it was his missed tackle early and he was slow in his kick chase that actually gave opportunities to the Storm. But anyway, the Roosters actually getting in front. Lindsay Collins getting a try. Sandon Smith delivering that one. And as you say, Walker, the clutch field goal, puts the Roosters up by the same scoreline that they defeated the Sharks by the week before. And it looked like it was going to hang on that scoreline. If you're Melbourne, I think at that point, you just got to find a way to get a field goal. Like, you are the home team, you are the favourite, and you should have more in the tank. And Melbourne couldn't do it. Melbourne couldn't find a field goal. Now, the next talking point is, was Harry Grant hit high? I feel like he probably was. So I think there's justice that the brick with tries comes down with that try, because otherwise we're all going to be talking about why was Harry Grant mugged and smacked in the face and it was overlooked. I know it might have been soft, but to the letter of the law. But Melbourne still couldn't execute a field goal. And you said Munster, that play, look, he puts the kick on a dime from where the ball was. He probably didn't have a clean shot at a field goal. But it was an all or nothing play. And luckily for the Storm, they got it all.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And the Harry Grant one was a super interesting one, because I think if that's round 2, or even like all the way to like round 20 in games that are just at part of the season, the ref's probably going to penalise that. It was high, it was soft, but they're going to give the penalty once the player stays down. I've seen that happen multiple times this year, and in softer instances than that even, and in the past. But I kind of like that, what the referee did. I hope that's the line in the sand, where if the referee doesn't see it as a penalty initially, doesn't go to the bunker, he just says, stand up. You're only hurting your own team because you need points and the clock's still ticking. So whilst it probably wasn't right, I did like the common sense approach.
I'm kind of split with you as well. Like, consistency is out the window. Like, he was hit in the face. It's got to be a penalty, and when we were on Melbourne, so you want the right decision there. But Harry Grant felt the hit across the mouth, stayed down, which is a dangerous game these days, because an independent doctor might say, oh, you're off for, you're off for an HIA check, and suddenly you might kick a field goal. You might play extra time without Harry Grant, but he stayed down. And what I hated was the moment that the whistle blew for time off, he popped straight back up, because he didn't want to be taken off for HIA, but he did want to milk the penalty. So I'm with you that milking was not rewarded. And look, very brave. I guess last thing would be to just have a word on the Roosters. Look, if they played the season with that sort of toughness, with all of the key troops were out, man, they still executed where they needed to, still looked threatening in attack, and were incredibly tough and resilient in defense. They played with that sort of application and desperation earlier this year. They would have finished far higher on the ladder, and they might still be playing footy right now. They left it all a bit late. You still got to commend the fight in that club to end the year with 6 wins in a row, and then getting as close as they did down in Melbourne in a hostile territory. You got a word on the Roosters as they bow out of the comp?
Yeah, really weird season for it, where they improved toward the end of the year when it seemed too late. Arguably, they played better in finals against tougher competition with more pressure than they did against easier sides in the regular season. Now, I remember when they won back-to-back premierships when Teddy first came and then there was Cronk. They didn't really connect at first. They didn't start those seasons too well. In the end, they went all the way to the premiership. They obviously don't have the class of Teddy in his absolute prime with Cronk anymore. But I do wonder if that was the case again with Brandon Smith, Sam Walker in and out, etc. of this side this year. Look, I tipped them as my premiers. I got that one wrong. But I do feel they have something to offer next year now that spine seems settled. I would feel comfortable saying they make the prelims next year or better. But obviously there's a lot of footy to be played until then. But a weird old season for the Roosters, where when it seems so unlikely they'll play finals, in my opinion, now the club and their fans can actually hold their heads high, and they actually had a pretty decent season looking back on it from where they came from, in my opinion.
And as for the team that is playing a prelim next week, Melbourne, they go to Penrith now. There's been an awesome rivalry there between these clubs we know about. Penrith won comfortably the previous 2 encounters this year without stepping on the toes of that game. Clearly, the most important point is, will Jerome Hughes be back? Because you know they need him to have any chance. Craig Bellamy said he is a possibility. He could be a chance, and they'll give him every opportunity to play. Having said that, Wishart obviously did pretty well last night, did well in round 27. Xavier Coates, the question there from Colin, how about X? He's less likely, is what Bellamy said. So we're probably not going to know. We're probably not going to know till game day if Hughes is going to be right. And there's probably people in the comments who will say that doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I think they'll have to risk him like I guess the Warriors did to an extent. I'm just back looking at their team list when they versed Penrith at Bluebet in round 23. And yeah, I didn't want to say it in case I forgot. Jerome Hughes wasn't available for that game. Jonah Pezzett filled in, and they lost 26-6. They really didn't threaten the Panthers at all. I don't think anything's drastically changed between the sides. So in my mind, absolutely. It's not a bold call, but they do need Jerome Hughes to be competitive. Let's move to literally what just wrapped up. It was the Knights and the Warriors at Go Media Stadium at Mount Smart, and the Warriors win by 30 points, 40-10. Have to think that'd be their biggest ever finals victory, but I haven't deep dived those stats. And for me, they just looked in control majority of the time. The opening to the second half, the Knights did get a sniff. They came in within 6, and I thought, okay, maybe they'll make a contest of it. But outside of that tiny window, the Warriors were just simply too good here in almost every single aspect of rugby league. They looked fitter. They controlled the middle just perfectly. They looked fresher. It seriously felt like every tackle was a second effort and that they were offside. But I genuinely think that's just how dominant they were, that the Knights weren't able to, really compete at all in this one. Their big players, Sean Johnson in particular, wasn't that good. He wasn't bad. He had a good game, but I'm saying he didn't play great. You don't look at that and go, vintage SJ, best performance, 2 try assists, did his job at a halfback, played good, but didn't play great. You look at the Knights, and their best players were just poor. Ponga really didn't have much impact on that game. Their wingers were well off their best, and we know when the Knights are at the best, their wingers are rolling forward. No forwards stood up. Jacob Saifidi tried, I felt, but no one really went with him. All I can think is that 90 minutes last week, the travel internationally to New Zealand really took something out of them. But ultimately, though, when I break this game down, I just go to the first 15 minutes. The Knights did not complete a set. I don't think that's ever happened in finals history that I can remember watching. I've never seen a side take 15 minutes to complete a set. And that is the exact moment and the exact period from this game when that game was won for the Warriors and lost by the Knights. It goes without saying, at this stage of the competition, and against a classy side at the Warriors at home, you can't start your first 15 minutes like that and expect to have enough gas to go the full 80. But I want to know, how did you see this one?
Yeah, it's like, you're right. They're down 16-0 early, and you're right. They didn't actually end up with a kick on the end of a set until 15 minutes into the first half. They were robbed of possession. Like, they dropped it first set, they had it and didn't touch it again for 10 minutes. And in that time, it conceded a couple of tries. And that very much threatened to beat my best bet as well. So to remind people, best bet was first half under 20.5. There were exactly 20 points, 16-0 early. So then I'm thinking, one unconverted try is the most we can cop. And the Knights do get that unconverted try. It's unconverted because Ponga hits the post, and that was with about 15 left in the half. So then he just got to sweat the rest of the half. And I said it would be an arm wrestle. Well, an arm wrestle typically, in my mind, and a conservative start to a finals game when no one wants to make a mistake, is complete your set, get to halfway, get to a kick. Complete set, get to halfway, get to a kick. In fact, the stats were crazy. The Warriors had about 24 tackles in the Knights 20 to none in the first 15 minutes. And then the rest of the first half, the Knights had 26 tackles in the Warriors 20 to none. Until the very end, the Knights came up with an error coming out of their own end. And I thought for sure, with the margin 12, Johnson kicks a field goal here and puts them up 13 and gives us 21 at halftime. I thought for sure, but luckily enough, The Warriors went for it on Watendi's Lesniak's side in a rare moment where they didn't convert. So we get the win there. Look, the game goes over. So again, I talked about why I wanted to play first half because it can blow away late when a team cracks or whatever. But I think we deserve to win that because I liked the Warriors. I just didn't quite want to lay the line, not knowing about Johnson. I wanted to play Knights under. That would have won as well. So it would have been kind of cruel to come up with a different angle and lose. I'm also glad that there's been multiple times this year where I've played, as I've spoken about before, certain derivatives of full-time bets, and people have complained, like, just keep it simpler, you would have won. Well, recently these ones have won thanks to executing it, hopefully, the ideal way. Now, you said that the Knights lost the game in the first 15. Like, they kind of did because it was 16-0, and you can't give up 16 points in a finals game. You know, not only that, I thought the tries were pretty soft as well. Like, Nickel Klukstad goes through nearly untouched. Fanua Blake nearly untouched. Like, the Knights have won 10 in a row. The defense has been so much better than that every other game. That was really disappointing. It was like they were intimidated. But you can't quite say they lost the game there because they did get it back to 16-10 and had the momentum. Like, so it was a real pendulum swing of, like, all Warriors early. They're threatening like they're going to blow the Knights away. And then the Knights fully get themselves back in the game with the try before halftime and one afterwards. Some New Zealand fans might have thought the pass was suspect, but I thought it was okay. Clune to Lucas. So I think the key moment then was when the Warriors, they got back in front by a couple of scores, the Walker try, and then the one that breaks the Knights' backs is the Rocco Berry try, which again, you know, there's 2 or 3 players tackling him. He gets it down. So you got to be stronger than that. And in the end, those late tries, the Warriors just rode that momentum, and that's great for the fans. And it was a party, and they blew the Knights away in the end.
The Knights defense in particular, like, you look at the run they went on, they held the Raiders to 6, the Storm to 18 in a game where their goal line defense was brilliant, Doggies to 6, Rabbitohs to 10, Sharkies to 6, Dragons to 12. And it's not to say that those sides are on the same level as a Warriors side at home, but just that Knights side wasn't here today. And so I do think they will look back on this and be really disappointed. I just think it had to be the 90 minutes against the Raiders. They just had to pump the Raiders and get through that one easy. And if they did, and they were completely fresh for this one, DSAF doesn't get ruled out with that hammy, I can honestly see an alternate multiverse, if you will, where they do get over the Warriors here. But I think, to give a word on the Knights season, I think they'll look back at this one fondly. They finished 5th, but they will look at the close games and think, we could have been a top 4 side, and we're capable of being a top 4 side. I thought Kalen Ponga being back at fullback and therefore in this season was brilliant. But looking forward to next year, having a full preseason, building out that new spine of Crossland at 9, Gamble, Hastings in the halves, and Ponga at fullback. Genuinely, in my mind, like, if I had to name a top 8 tomorrow, they're absolutely in it because of that spine combination there. And I do think they're a chance to continue to build as contenders with the players they've got around them. Again, I like I said for the Roosters, I could see a world where the Knights are making finals week 2, if not prelims, in 2024 as well. They were your most improved this year. Do you see them continuing that trend into next year, or do you see them kind of dropping off a little bit?
Well, a lot went wrong for the Knights this year. That's the crazy thing. They lost those games they had won. They had a double-digit lead on Manly. They go to extra time. It ends up in a draw. They had a lead on Penrith. It goes to extra time. They lose. They missed goals as well, goals to win those games. You know, they had a game, and I know because I was on a best bet, where they had the Roosters dead to rights, and the Roosters had like multiple players out. Couldn't beat them in Newcastle. But within a few weeks of that, they were unbeatable at home. And I can't think off the top of my head, there's another Knights game that comes to mind where, you know, I bet on them at the time. And, when they played the Eels, I copped that much because they got thumped by the Eels. And I was saying, in my mind, the Knights are as good as the Eels. I mean, we all saw it later in the year. But I feel like they let games slip. We know that they lost Ponga like early in the second game and didn't get him back till around like 9 or something. And then, you know, took a while to move into fullback. But the other one that hasn't really been discussed, and you just said there, like an off-season with Phoenix Crossland, but their captain, Jaden Brayley, was out for the season after like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, how many other teams could you take their captain away and they still exceed expectations by more than any team nearly? So there is opportunity for improvement. Of course, Dom Young will move on next year, but I thought once they finally got the spine together, you know, Adam Elliott was out early in the season as well. Of course, which was Jacob Saifidi, was suspended for like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
They had a horrid injury toll. So there is room for improvement in all those aspects. And they ran into just a very tall task playing the Warriors in like their first home finals game in over a decade. Not many teams would have come in here and been able to win this game. And I think we get the correct, deserving Final Four next week.
I think that's absolutely fair to say. And to the Warriors fans that were there, and if you guys are listening now by any chance, man, you guys made a difference. Like if this was at Newcastle and Newcastle were providing that energy to their fans like they did to get them home against the Raiders, then, you could see a world where at a different venue, the Knights are more competitive here. But that home crowd definitely played their part and helped out their side. It was awesome to see. Well deserved for Warriors fans. And ultimately, no matter what happens next week, it is a massively successful season to them. So well done to the Warriors. I think we'll call it there. I think we'll keep it a rapid recap today. Winnie, do you have anything else to add before we close the show?
That's it. I don't have a tip for the AFL, but I'll probably watch the AFL finals tonight. I'm sorry to say my finals multi-combo is out because of the AFL. The Melbourne Demons, if you didn't watch it, you probably saved some anguish, but they went out in straight sets. They lost both games by a goal or less. Both times they kicked nearly twice as many behinds as goals. Even last night, they're winning until inside the final minute. They hit the post when they would have won it. Their own captain got in front of a goal. I don't understand it all. And they lost by 2 points last night. So we would have been perfectly placed. Both Brisbane teams looking good. It would have probably come down to the Rugby World Cup, but not to be for the 8-1 finals combo. However, if anyone else has a tip for any, of the other smorgasbord of sport that's on for the rest of the weekend, throw it in the comments. Let us know, because it's a great time of year, exciting time of year. And you and I will be back Wednesday night, won't we, to preview the prelims.
Absolutely. Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. there. Be there or be square. We'll break down both prelims and give out our best bets, and fingers crossed win you guys some cash while you watch the footy like we all love to do. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight, and we can't wait to see you back on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yet to lose a finals best bet.